Welcome to the Unfading Truth Bible reading plan. Today we're reading Romans chapter 5, verses 12 through 14. Discover grace that's stronger than you are. Romans chapter 5, we'll start reading here at verse 12. Therefore, Paul writes, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin. And in this way death came to all people because all sinned. To be sure, sin was in the world before the law was given, but sin is not charged to anyone's account where there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from the time of Adam to the time of Moses, even over those who did not sin by breaking a command, as did Adam, who is a pattern of the one to come. Well, I know it's not quite the new year yet, but we're starting our new year together, and that means we're starting a new confession. We're going to be looking this year at the Canons of Dort. The Canons of Dort are organized into 5 points. And this first point that we're going to be looking at, point 1, is God's unconditional grace. And the first thing that we need to know about God's unconditional grace is that God has the right to condemn all people. Why? Because all people have sinned in Adam. You don't need to wonder why things are the way they are. Why it is that our world is filled with so much misery, pain, and worst of all, death. All of these horrors, they stem from one primary source, and that's sin. Sin is a familiar word that gets used often. It's something that's generally understood to be a bad action or an evil deed, as one Greek dictionary defines the original word that Paul used here. But that same dictionary gives 2 additional definitions that are critical to fully understand this condition which has infected our world. First of all, sin is a failure to hit the mark. As in when an archer doesn't just miss the bullseye, but misses the target altogether. This is what Paul has in mind when he writes that sin was not charged against anyone's account before the law was given. Now, the sin was still there, but the law, that is the target, well, it really wasn't defined until Moses relayed God's law to the people. So first of all, sin is a failure to hit the mark. And secondly, sin can be understood as an error of the understanding. If you read along with us last year, well, you'll remember how often we noticed the Bible explaining that sin has completely compromised our ability to think correctly. Therefore, we gravely misunderstand who God is and what his expectations are. The source of sin and all of the problems it introduced is singular. Paul writes, sin entered the world through one man, Adam. Now, today's passage may seem depressing and hopeless. It's because of sin that death now reigns. But don't miss the massive good news in the final verse. Adam, he's a pattern of the one to come. Let's dig a little bit deeper. The internet is likely full of blogs and podcasts today, optimistic about the coming year, encouraging you to finally make 2025 the year that you overcome your issues and your problems simply by manifesting a positive outcome. But this isn't your first New Year's celebration. You've been here before, filled with resolutions and ambitious goals. Yet each subsequent year turned out to be more or less the same as the years that preceded it. So we're not going to start this year with a bunch of senseless optimism here at Unfading Truth. Rather, we're going to ground ourselves in the cold, hard truth. 2025 will have just as many, if not more, problems as last year and the years before. We can be certain of this because Paul here helps us recognize why it is. The world is contaminated with sin and the resulting curse. But neither are we beginning the year as pessimists. We know where not to look for hope. We won't find it in ourselves, since we're all sons and daughters of Adam. And we know where to find true and lasting hope, in the one that Adam was a pattern of, the new Adam, our Savior, Jesus Christ. This year we're focusing on God's sovereign grace, which is stronger than I am. And we're going to see how tightly we are held in God's saving hands, and how that enables you to live with confidence, even in this broken, fallen world. Well, as you pray today, use the AAA prayer pattern. That's where you begin your prayer by acknowledging who God is. Today, let's follow what's set for us here in Romans chapter 5 and open our prayer to our Father, who made our salvation possible by sending his Son to become a new and better Adam who hit God's mark. Then as you pray, go on to align your life with God's will. Pray that you will grow in the knowledge of God's sovereign saving grace as we spend this next year working our way through the canyons of Dort. Then you can ask God for what it is that you need. Remember, everything else that you hear today will fade away, but the word of the Lord is unfading truth.